The versatility for me is like most important point to drive home of like, I hope this cardigan takes you on the course. I hope you can wear jeans traveling today. I hope you can wear it out to dinner tomorrow. And that's where I'm just like, that's the point of these clothes. And I've always loved kind of the capsule style, minimalistic approach to dressing anyways, where it's just like, you can have 5 really good pieces in your closet and wear them so many different ways.
Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to give you a heads up that unfortunately my mic was not working while we were recording. Allison's mic was working perfectly, and you can still hear me through Allison's mic, but my audio is going to be a little more echoey than usual. I apologize for this. Unfortunately, Allison lives in Cleveland and it's not easy to re-record. And I love this interview so much that I would hate to re-record and it not be the same dynamic episode that we recorded this month. So again, we apologize. You can still fully understand the conversation. You're going to love this episode as much as I did. So again, let's get into it. And thanks again for listening. Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori and I am your host. Thank you for tuning in today. I apologize for having new episodes pretty sporadic at the start of the year and really through the fall too. I'm in a place of trying to figure out what excites me again and making new episodes and how I want them to look like. And, maybe I'm thinking too much, maybe not. Maybe I'm just not into it as much as I used to be. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm going to continue to work on it. And it's actually episodes like today's that really inspire me to keep going with the podcast and keep working my ass off in the golf industry. And, I'm really happy to bring it to you today. So we have Ali Putnam, founder of A Putnam, the clothing brand that is changing things up in golf clothes. And I can't wait for Allison to share her story with you. I loved this conversation. It's one of those chats where it came easily and we could have talked for hours. And I ended up, making a purchase very quickly because the clothes that she is designing are gorgeous and they are full transition pieces where you can wear them on the course, off the course, to a cocktail party, on an airplane. I actually bought the blazer that's called the travel blazer, and I can't wait to travel in it, to be honest. So thank you again for tuning in. If you're joining us soon in March at Desert Classic, we are working our ass off to make this the best Desert Classic ever, and I am confident in saying that. It's going to be an absolute blast in the desert. We have an amazing event planned for you in March, and not to mention all the other events we have for this year, whether it's the Creek Cup at Sea Island, Georgia. We have our Girls Gone Golfing retreat in Spain, which actually 2 spots opened up recently. 2 of the players, unfortunately, had to cancel, so I'm helping them fill their spots. The Spain retreat I cannot wait. I have never been to Spain before, and the itinerary that we are planning is epic. So if you want to grab a friend and come to Spain with us this September, I don't have the dates right in front of me, but if my memory's serving me correctly, it's September 21st to 28th. We are playing 6 gorgeous courses. We are staying right on the beach. I'm kind of used to having our swag bags for the big retreats be, rain clothes and jackets and beautiful knits. And we're going to be in gorgeous weather. And we're not going to Ireland or Scotland. We're going to Spain. We're going to be on the beach. So I have to get creative. So I'm excited to plan that. And of course, that retreat is all inclusive. All I ask is that you get there and then we take care of the rest. So as soon as you get off the airplane, we pick you up and we take care of all the meals, the golf, the hotel, everything. It's all inclusive. And then speaking of being on the beach and golfing, we finally end our 2025 schedule with the Dinsante Bay Invitational in Mexico, which is a partner tournament We play 3 rounds of golf, so a practice round, then 2 tournament days. We are staying at Villa del Palmar, which is the resort that is right on property. It's super easy. Everything that you need is very self-contained in the resort area. And that hotel also is all inclusive. So it just makes it super easy when we get there. And it's the ultimate beach party with golf. Anytime someone says, oh, I haven't been to TPC Dinsante Bay, I want to be like, you must go. It is gorgeous. And I know I've said this time and time again. It's one of my top 5 favorite courses. And it's just an absolute blast when you put 100 other women there that love the game, and we have friendly competition, and it's just amazing. So if you want information on registering for the Spain retreat, which again, we only have 2 spots open, information is in the show notes to register. And then also if you want to register a team for the Dinsante Bay Invitational, you'll see the link in the show notes also. And as all of our tournaments and retreats, you can sign up as a single player. I will help pair you with a roommate in Spain, or I will help pair you with a partner in Dinsante Bay. And I think there is a couple players that are going to Dinsante Bay that want to help get paired up with not only a partner, but also someone to share their hotel room with, so that that cost goes down. Packages for the hotel, which also include the all-inclusive plan, start at about $1,300 per person. So that includes all 4 nights and the all-inclusive plan. So it's an amazing deal. I just can't wait for that tournament. We haven't been there since 2022, and it's just a magical place. And I can't wait to share it with you. So with that being said, let's get into today's brand new episode with Ali Putnam, founder of A. Putnam. You will love this conversation, and there's no doubt in my mind you'll be visiting A. Putnam's website maybe even before the episode ends, but let's get into it.
Next up on the number 1 tee.
Hi, Allison. How are you?
Hi, Tori. I'm so excited to be here.
So it's been a little bit of a crazy morning.
It was.
Luckily, other than the last episode, I am fully dressed. I'm not in my pajamas.
Jeez.
You know,
Love to hear that
it's
story
life.
for another time. I know.
You know it all about it with
Do.
5 young boys.
Yes.
Under 8?
They're under 11, so they're 11 to 4 now. So it gets easier, but harder in a different way.
So tell me why you were here.
Yes.
Phoenix Open, what were you up to?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not staying for the Phoenix Open,
Yeah.
like mother duties call, but I was here actually for an event yesterday with the PGA Tour Wives Association. So I did this event last year, and the weather was terrible, if you remember.
I saw.
Everybody remembers.
It was a sight.
It was. So they always get together locally when they travel with their spouses, and they actually find a local charity, and they throw an event and bring sponsors in and really raise money for these local charities. So it's something that's really cool to be a part of. And so I always am like, I will be there. You tell me when and where, I'm there.
Absolutely.
And it was sunny this time.
No, it's been gorgeous out. Well, they're lucky this week for Phoenix Open.
They are.
It's quite-
They're going to have a much easier
Yeah.
week.
So this is what I want to dive into.
Yeah.
Today, because, and it's A. Putnam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I keep wanting to call it Ali Putnam. It's A. Putnam.
Yeah, shortened.
The clothing line that you started in 2023.
Yes.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I just ordered a blazer.
I saw you. I was
I'm
like,
a sucker for a blazer.
too
And
cute.
the other day I was looking for a white button down in my, you know how white goes.
Yeah, I always
yellow.
do. Yeah, you
so I
just
was like,
not a lot of life
I was
to
like,
it.
oh no. So I'm really glad.
You're going to love this one. It's one of those that people are just like, how is this so good?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a weird thing, but it was one of my first designs, and it's one of our best sellers.
Yeah.
So
I
funny.
can't wait about that. But
Yeah.
I want to talk about A. Putnam getting into the golf industry.
Yeah.
Because I gotta be honest, it is a different, it's
100%.
a different look, but not really.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to the country club to have dinner
Mm-hmm.
after school, after work, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily you're on the golf course. Now I can see it on the
Yes.
golf course, but
Right.
you just don't see it.
Right.
So how are we getting you into the golf industry? What does it look like? Tell me from the beginning. I wanna know everything.
Absolutely. And I think me and my relationship with golf explains a lot of what I design and why.
Mm-hmm.
So I started golfing when I was 6 years old. My dad is a businessman, a serial entrepreneur, and he was like, I don't care if you love it or not, you're going to learn how to golf because one day you'll be in business and you need it.
Yeah.
So that was always my relationship with it. I went to D1 school playing lacrosse, like loved sports, very
At
like,
Syracuse.
yes,
Yeah,
cold Syracuse. So I didn't touch a club for years. Like maybe I'd go home and we'd, golf as a family and stuff. I've got 2 brothers and we'd golf. Mom has always been into golf. And I met my husband. He was a turf grass science major from Ohio State. So had a passion for the sport and always played, but not, at a collegiate level or anything. So our date nights were golf.
Yeah.
So I got really reintroduced into the sport just young, right before I got married. Then we, of course, went into what felt like 10 years of having kids.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine the limited time I had.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nonstop. I mean, it was a fast 10 years.
That's how I would do it, though. And that's how I did it with my 3. It was
Right.
like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing it. I'm committed.
Yeah.
Boom.
Then you're not out of that like routine.
Yes.
But all meanwhile, like going through that, I've always had a career and really career focused. So I was an international supply chain logistics person working in industrial manufacturing and traveling the world. And I kept having these opportunities to golf with CEOs, executives, partners. And so it started to become kind of like, okay, socially it was just with my husband, started to golf with kids, and then it was really work focused. And that's when, and I was doing it a little bit more post having kids, and I never knew what to wear on the course in those moments where in my mind, and I love clothes. So there's a whole history of me loving design and clothes, but I just thought to myself, like at work, I always have this mentality of you dress for the position you want, not the one you have. So I'd always err on the side of dressing up at work.
Yep.
Even on casual Fridays, I was always typically just dressed up. So on the course, I started wearing pieces from my work wardrobe.
Yeah.
And the button up, as you just said, was one of those pieces that felt kind of very classic, timeless, put together. But I was like, ugh, can't stand that. I can't keep the sleeves rolled. The fabric's a little like not right. And I think I was at a point in my career where my dad was just like, you seem kind of settled. And he's constantly pushing me, like, what's your next goals? And he's like, you could stay at home with the kids. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, that's just not for me. I'm kind of ready to go on to something else. And I said, I had this idea. And I think this moment of disappointment and options for golf wear. And so I said, I might like try to figure out how to do maybe a few pieces and see where that goes. And he's like, all right, well, figure out how to start a clothing line. So I took a course and started working on it.
Okay, so you took this course, which was like the how to kind of get started.
Yes. Yeah, I literally went to Google and said, how do you start a clothing line?
Yeah.
And I found this woman who put together a program, a 6-month program, and it was really hyper focused on like starting a sustainable clothing line. And even getting into it, I was like, I'm going to have a US made product. I'm going to have all organic materials, like a list where you're just like, I'm going to check all these boxes. You quickly get into it and it's like, okay, there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
And with that, though, there's a lot of things behind sustainability. And I always say I'm a conscious brand, and it's a brand that you should get multiple uses out of your pieces. So that's kind of my sustainable approach to the business. But I learned so much in that course, and I learned how to do it on a dime, which I think was really valuable. And then I just saw this gap and nobody was doing it. And I was like, I got to run faster than I can do it on my own. Okay. So,
well, can we back up?
Yes.
So you take the class.
Yes.
Okay? You're ready to go. You love fashion. You see this hole in the industry, which I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what was the next step?
That like springs you off. I said about goal setting. I was like, I'm going to launch at the PGA show. And I knew very well that I wanted to be hyper focused on private clubs and resorts. Belonged to a club that had really strict dress code. And I loved that about it.
Yes.
And I know that's a very big shift in the business, as you know, of going quite the other way.
Well, so I'm going to pause you right here.
Yeah.
Because just recently, this past weekend was the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And we have Jason Day wearing the sweatpants and the sweatshirt, and you go on social media and you kind of see like 2 ways about it. Like we need to evolve, we need to be wearing different things, but I'm on the other side.
I know.
I love the tradition.
Right.
You know, I do think that there's a way to evolve golf clothing without
sacrificing
full sweatsuit.
Yeah. I know.
So I didn't like it.
Right.
You know?
And I think people are like side of the fence or not.
Yeah.
And I also think there's this like accessibility to golf, which I think is the coolest thing for the sport.
Yeah.
But I think what comes with that is how do you make it more approachable? And I think a lot of companies have taken the opportunity to do that. And from a clothing perspective of saying like, you don't have to follow rules to play golf. And I think that's where in apparel, it kind of starts to bend a little bit the other way. So I think, there's a place for it.
Exactly.
And a really cool, I think, culture around all that now, and it's really changed.
Yeah.
So
you want to start. So what was some of the first couple steps? You said your goal setting. So
Yes.
you were aiming for the 2023
2023 PGA show. So it was all those little things. It was like planning a wedding. Like, all right, I got to buy my booth space. I have to build a booth.
And how long in advance? So the PGA show.
Oh my gosh. January. I would say it's a full, I probably was on an 8-month timeline at that point.
I love this. Let's go through the timeline. I want to hear it.
So crunched, but all while doing that, I was trying to get samples in time and make sure everything was buttoned up. And, it's really hard. I think anybody understands this from starting a brand is that like I was launching to no one, right? Like I hadn't been out there building a community. And I know you've talked to like Jen Stiles from For All, and I love those girls. Yeah. Like we always say, like we're just polar opposites. But what they did is that they had a community of women and then started a brand. I was launching to absolutely no one. So my tactic on that was showing up to the PGA show like I had been there. So I spent a little extra money on the booth, like had these things all buttoned up where it was just like, all right, she looks like she knows what she's doing.
Absolutely. Well, and I admire that too, because that's, again, how I would approach it too. Like, okay, I want to look good, feel good, like act like I know what the fuck I'm doing, right?
Amen.
And so you had to prepare the booth, but even before that, you are getting your branding.
Oh yeah. So branding done. I remember my husband gives me a hard time jokingly, but he's like, you paid a marketing firm to come up with Ali Putnam. I'm like, it was a process, okay?
Yes. You know what? Back off there, buddy, okay?
I know. So, and in the end, it worked out great. Yeah. But, there were those little details. And then, like I said, it's fabric selections. You're going through prototypes. And I, not being a formal designer, I think there's a little bit, I had leaned on a third-party company that was helping me with bring this together and saying like, here's an assortment, start with product that can potentially be core, that can kind of linger and come around. And, I had a lot of outside influence at that point, and some of it helped and some of it not hurt. But I think it kind of tightened me in this little, bubble to some degree on what I should be designing. And it was not quite, even I look back at some of the first designs and I'm like, it's not my favorite. I'm ready to like get rid of that. But that's always going to be the case every season. But I remember them saying like, you need to have color and pattern. You're a golf company, you need to have some color and pattern. And that was a stretch for me because if you can't tell, I don't typically wear color and pattern.
No, but I love that.
I know.
It's funny because I feel like sometimes like I admire people that dress like you, and they're very neutral and they're very preppy and there's layers and it's just so put together. But that's not necessarily me. That's what I like sometimes strive for in certain outfits, but it's not necessarily
or just
me.
Like moments in your life. I think we all always kind of flex. You should see me. I'm typically like coaching my boys lacrosse in the spring and wearing hooded sweatshirts and sweatpants. Like there's a moment to be like, which I love, to hang on to that kind of sporty. But
it's interesting that they still tried to put you in a certain box
100%.
where you're like, this is not very comfortable. I kind of want to...
Exactly. And I think what's kind of evolved for us is that I agree that there's this space for color and pattern, which brings in the seasonality. But I've just come around to, I think, perfect, like when I do a pattern, I'm working typically with an artist that can hand paint something for me or something that can really incorporate all the little colors that we drop out in one, let's say 4 drops. So it's evolved, but man, like that's the hard part. When I come up to designing a season, which right now is fall, winter 26, I'm almost done with. And it's like, I got to commit to a color. Yeah. That's hard from a trend, like forecasting and stuff. You try to watch those things and pick up on like, all right, well, is this color sticking around? But
so in the beginning, how many pieces was the ideal amount of pieces to get started with?
I had like 9 or 10 pieces, and it was like, you gotta have 2 bottoms, you gotta have,
was it hard to just stick to that, or were you kind of like wanting to go more?
Always. Always.
Yeah, okay.
I literally have to hold back. Every collection, I just have so many ideas that I'm just like, I gotta save it. I have to reserve myself.
You're like, I'm going to start planning 2028 tomorrow. But
exactly. I do. And I do like to sketch and all that. And it's kind of, it is hard as you run a business and we're running really lean. It's like, how do you still find time for that creative space and all that, which I love. But yeah, so it's.
You went into the PGA show.
Went into the PGA show.
And you had 8 pieces.
Yes. Yeah.
And they were ready to go, or were you kind of like, these were ready? I was still kind of like.
Thankfully, they were all ready.
8 months.
I know. It was wild. It was pretty quick. But the nice part is it gave me a little leeway. I had already placed my PO. So I was kind of like, all right, I have to place it. At that point, you're kind of buying the minimums because you're like, I'm not sure how many I'm going to sell.
Yeah.
But I was walking into conversations with customers and saying that our product ships in May. So, which for the golf industry is a little late. You think about here, like they're taking their spring stuff in Arizona in January.
Yeah.
So the calendar's wacko. And then you have regional locations, which are like different angles too, whether I'm designing fall and thinking sweaters and coats and all these things. And I'm like, oh, well, you guys are really, I mean, Arizona is kind of an exception because you always need a layer, but California is like, I don't really need knitwear and stuff right now.
Exactly.
So it's been such an evolution. But coming out of that PGA show, we just made the right decisions. And I think the PGA show does a really nice job supporting new brands now, where they have a really cool day. It's called a 1-to-1, and you actually are guaranteed 10 to 15 appointments that first day before the show starts.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And that's where I met like Congressional and North Shore. It's just some incredible clubs that to this day are really good customers.
So tell me about the orders that came out of 2023 then.
2023, I walked out of the PGA show with probably 30 orders. I know, which you walk into that and you're like, it's either going to go well or it's going to be like crickets. Yeah. But thankfully, and we decided like we'll do the fashion show, all those things. You, of course, nickel and dime. You do. So, but it was good exposure. I think that first show I got to sit with Bailey Chambly and be on the, I know you heard so well, be on Golf Channel for the kind of features. Like those little things and moments helped, I think, give us a little better visibility coming out of that. But it's just continued to grow, and we've really evolved, and I'm sure every brand does to some degree, and figuring out like who's your customer, who resonates with you, and it's really shaped kind of like where we are today and where we're finding like our lady. Yeah.
Now you mentioned there were some things like you look back and those initial 8 pieces and you're like, I think evolved quite a bit since that one. We will retire her. Tell me some things that really, some changes that you made between your first capsule and your second, it is. And when you were really allowed time to kind of digest and like, okay, we're rolling.
This is what we are. Right. And I had a few more, I think just that leeway. I kind of shed some outside opinions. For example, one of the skirts, which we still have, it's kind of in our core group and lineup, but it's a really active skirt and like a poly blend, athletic fabric. You pick it up, stretch waistband, of course, little undershorts and stuff, and simple colors, but I never wear it. And I never wear it because I would never step out of my house in it except for golf. And I say with any of the styles, if I can't wear it or want to wear it outside of the course, then it's just not A. Putnam. Yep. And so as you touched on before, that's what makes it so different. Yes. So my next spring collection was, I have this really cool double PK, which is a little thicker fabric in it. I made a skirt that was a little bit more structured. And I was like, I can wear this with this beautiful mock neck we made and sandals, and I can go to dinner. So there was just such an evolution, and a lot of it's, I think, figuring out fabrics. And I always try to find that functional fabric in golf. So it does have to be stretchy. It does have to be moisture wicking or some property like that. But again, I think the silhouettes and everything, I'm really focused on having those just style details that make it not look like golf in transition. Yeah. So that really changed. But, we had a couple pieces that, as we talked about early on, like that button up was one of the first products I ever thought of. And it stuck around. And now I actually have a fall collection that I didn't drop a new color because the spring color carried over. And the amount of people that were like, you didn't come out with another color of that button up. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
And would you consider the color that deep green?
Yeah, so we just came out with that like spring green, that like chive. And then fall coming up, I didn't come out with any because a couple of our colors still carry over. But it is funny. I'm like, okay, I won't make that mistake again. Yeah. So...
a piece I loved. And I loved how you styled it on your social media.
Oh, which one's that?
Can you guess?
Is it the tulip short?
No, it's the reversible bomber.
Oh, the reversible.
Like the way
Yes.
you presented that on your social media,
you're so cute.
that it's like adding just that last layer.
Yes.
Just puts the
Yeah.
outfit together.
Yeah.
And then you reversed it, and I was like,
So sold.
that's why I went on the website this morning. I was
You're
like,
so
okay,
cute.
I need to find that bomber. Now, the new color is not necessarily for my skin tone,
Yeah.
but I just,
That's so funny. I'll have to get, we still have some cream ones.
Okay.
Like that's a good one. But it is funny. And I love, like as a designer, I think it's so cool to be able to make decisions on clothes, to be like, I've always been one of those people of like, how can I get more looks out of that? Or how can you add some really sneaky good feature that's just like, why hasn't somebody thought about that?
Yeah, exactly.
And so even the evolution of our button up was, my mom walked in and she had a fly fishing shirt on, and I was like, what is that extra button? She was like, it's a modesty pocket. I was like, I don't know what that is. And she has other problems that I don't. And I was just like, why would you do? She's like, so it doesn't gap. And I was like, my shirt needs that.
Yes.
So now all our button ups have a modesty pocket. Anything of ours that has a button down, like placket, will have a modesty button. So it just like little things were like that. I'm like, I could make that decision and put that on there. Or our skirts have like a really good stretch waistband, but still functional button zip, everything that looks so buttoned up, yet it's still like comfortable.
Exactly.
So,
Okay, so tell me about how you got into PGA Superstore.
oh yes.
Because that's a big deal. Or
Yeah.
was there something else that happened that was a bigger deal?
No,
I mean, that.
it's always like, and those are really tricky things for us just because we're really focused on our green grass, which is our private country clubs and resorts, and they don't love that.
They don't love that you're a PGA Superstore.
No.
Okay.
No.
I actually like that they don't like that.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'll tell you the story of PGA Tour Superstore, because we shipped our last shipment to them in the fall, and it was like, I love the team over there. Like, first of all, one, for them to give me the opportunity, and I think they were trying to just really change their selection of product to meet more women, meet more ages. And
I
so,
agree.
I think they were really trying hard to do that. And we decided, and my price point is higher. So it's not great for a PGA Tour Superstore or Dick's or anything like that. So they put us in their 5 select resort stores. And, that's Palm Desert, Palm Beach, 2 stores here in Arizona. And I think it went well, not really well. They said the second my stuff went on sale, it was like gone. So I think it was a price issue for sure. But it gave us some good exposure. The amount of people that, even clubs that were like, hey, my wife said she saw you in PGA Tour Superstore. And that's kind of the benefit for somebody like us. But then we kind of came to this mutual agreement that they were working on their sales and trying, those big box stores they're numbers, they're sell through. If you're not like moving at your price point where they have those nice margins, like it's just not working. So it was kind of a mutual, and I also felt this pressure of like, I don't know if it was a great decision for us.
Yeah. And
I think that's always going to happen with building a business, where you're just like, maybe it wasn't the greatest alignment, but like there was some good that came of it. So that's how I feel about PGA Tour Superstore. I don't know that there's not an opportunity down the road, but right now I think we both were like, just not perfect.
I agree with that. And I admire that you know your buyer.
Yeah.
Like, you know who you designed for and what this all revolves around.
100%.
A businesswoman that transitions from family, golf, business.
Yes.
Like,
Nailed
you
it.
are sticking to that. And I admire that, because it's very easy when you see traction to be like, well, I can make something for this person
100%.
too.
Yes.
And the PGA Superstore, that's not a good fit. I want to see it all pressed in a country club pro shop.
Yes. And like a tighter selection. And what I love about it is even like the consultative sales side of anything. And I'm not a sales girl. I was always on the buying side growing up in supply chain. Love coming into those pro shops and just saying that, I understand your job's really hard. Women is 10%, best maybe 30% of a bottom line in a pro shop. And it's hard for them to get the assortment right when they're looking for what products can I bring in for maybe my 35, 40-year-old, but also my 75, 80-year-old.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And they have such little floor space generally.
Oh, no.
So
very small.
It's so hard. And I always say, I'm like, girls are picky. Like, we all have a different style. We have different taste. It's just a really hard job. So we just are really focused on trying to make their job easy and make them look good, to say, if you want something just a tad different, it's not going to speak to every one of the ladies that walk in here. And I always say, we're not the performance brand, as you touched on. There will be moments, like, I'll be very selective if I'm out here golfing in a 95-degree day of like, what would I wear? I can find those pieces, but on a day that I can either layer up, like I might wear something different. So, and that's always an evolution of design and things like that. So,
well, dipping back into your social media.
Yeah.
Again, because it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And actually, no, I want to back up about the pro shop. I went into our pro shop at Arizona Country Club a couple days ago, and last year I think she had record sales.
Yeah.
Because she turns stuff
Fast.
frequently, you know, and she redecorate, like she re-merchandises, and she makes things look different, and she pairs things fabulous. So I went in there the other day, and our space is getting smaller. The guys' polo shirts are starting to take over the women's section. I'm like, Christy, what is going on? She's like, the women aren't buying anything. And I'm like, gosh, how do you come off of a record year of sales, which I know us women have part of that.
Yeah.
And we want to buy. I know my friends at the country club. I know me. I want to buy.
Right.
So it's very frustrating to hear that from a female buyer who's done such a good way in the past, and now she's like, women don't buy, and it's like the last thing you want to hear, because we do buy. So where is that? Like, how does that statement go away?
I always say that a buyer has to get creative.
Yeah.
And I think it's how she communicates to the ladies. And I know a lot of people will say, a lot of buyers will be like, well, pop-up's really good. Or, I mean, in their mind, how can I sell product without carrying product? Yeah. Like the inventory side of it. How do I carry product without getting stuck with it? Yeah. And so we've just come up with ways that make that a little bit easier. Or, hey, let us help you with some of your marketing. Like, let us help you talk to your ladies about what options there are. Or, hey, buyer, like, take our lookbook, and like the next time that your ladies come in, like, show them the lookbook. And, you know, a lot of brands take special orders, so that if you walk in and you're like, will you please show me something else? You know, she could say, hey, she can call me up and say, Tori really wants to try these few pieces. Can you send them in? Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So it is such like I almost think women and a buyer need to have, I always say this is like almost like a private buying, like consultative approach to selling, even for them, to say like, I know my members. I know when Tori comes in, I'm going to show her the new pink top that Ali Putnam just came out with. Yeah. And those are the buyers that we see just like kill it. Yeah. And like you said, though, that they're also bringing in really tight drops. They're turning it. They might not carry as many sizes or colors. Because you know that the second I had this beautiful orange dress that we did last summer, and I always thought in my head, I was like, it's one of those things that the second one member wears it, there's clubs that are either, and I just heard this from somebody this week at a club, saying there are those clubs that when a woman comes in with a fabulous outfit, there's going to be 6 to 10 more ladies that want the same thing.
1,000,000%.
But there's also the clubs that are like, oh, she's got that. I wouldn't buy that. Like, I'm not going to wear that same orange dress that Tori has.
That's such a statement piece, probably.
And it is. So it's the nuances of women in shopping and all that is so tough. But I really think we're trying to get just very like intimate with the buyer to be like, let us help you, because it's not easy. We get it. So, but you know what? It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of hand holding, and it's, you know, and we do have a fairly small team, but like, that's why I always say about 90% of our energy, time, focus, resources go into green grass, because you just have to take care of them. So in social media, all that stuff's important. My margins are much better when somebody buys off my website, but it's not what's important to me. Yeah. So.
Wait, is that what you call it?
What's that?
Country club, pro shops, green grass?
Yes. The whole like market of private country clubs is green grass. I know. New fun term. So, yeah.
Okay. So you get 30 orders at your first PGA show. And you're very goal-oriented. Yeah. We know, I mean, this is how you have executed such an amazing business.
Oh, thanks.
So what was your next big set of goals that
It
you
was,
tackled?
I mean, I definitely, and I've always had this, and we're really like picking away at it, is to some degree having the top 100 courses. That list has evolved a little bit because I don't know that we're a good fit for all 100, or they're all just a little different in their own right. But there's other lists out there of like the AGM, the Association of Golf Merchandisers, is a fabulous group of people, buyers, really, merchandisers. And so now we look at, all right, those top 10 Platinum Award winners, like those are the shops we want to go after. So it's really evolved, but that list of targets was really important. What I found off the bat was that buyers will come to the PGA show, but there are, in each regional location, there's 2 a year of their like regional PGA shows.
And I know the one here too.
Yes. Yeah. SGRA, like that in Mesa, right? So that's a big one. And I literally, when I started this brand, it was just me.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess I'll pick one and go to it. So I headed out to Palm Desert. I did a desert show, and then I did Casa, which is just north of that, and started growing accounts that way and figuring out what's the next regional show. And those aren't easy to get into. I still can't get into some.
Really?
No.
What's the attitude behind that? Brands that kind of don't want
No. So like I
competition?
don't know what it is. Maybe a little bit. I think in those regional shows, it's really like, it's the reps territory. And obviously most of the reps are multi-line reps. We now, I mean, when I started, I didn't have a rep. It was just me. We now have 7. But California was great and I lucked out. But even looking at like the Northeast, they require that you have a rep on their list. If your clothing line is not carried by a rep on that list, you're not allowed to come. And then even the SGRA, like they require that you have to have a proof of invoice for at least 10 to 15 country clubs or that you can't get in. So there's nuances to all of it.
Yes.
So they don't let anybody just walk in. So
And see, I would have thought anyone who wanted to buy a booth would.
yeah. And really it's such an important way to meet buyers because you think about how busy these merchandisers are and there's an etiquette to approaching a country club and you can't just stroll in and be at the security gate saying, hey, is your buyer available for me to drop off a catalog? You just can't do that. Yeah. So if golf couldn't be more about networking, and I know you know that, like I think anybody that's in the industry and the business of golf, like it's such a huge component is networking and relationships. And so at this point, it's really important for us to have kind of, whether it's, a member at a club, start asking like, hey, can you guys look at Ali Putnam? Like that's the kind of stuff that gets it rolling for us. So but man, what I've learned in the last 2 years of how you approach it is insane.
How inspiring for anyone listening. I mean, it's inspiring to me about how much progress you actually can make in 2 years.
Yeah.
A mother of 5 young boys. Yeah, I mean, it's any excuse that you have in your head right now is not, no. We're going to set that to the side right now.
You know.
So let's talk about the growth of your team.
Yes, it
because
has.
It was a team of 1.
Yes.
And now it's a team of...
So I've got 3 internal people. And what's really cool about it, and I'm really fortunate because I've got a structure behind me that I think is really unusual too. So my father, being a serial entrepreneur, we have a family office. So I've got 2 brothers that are very involved with a lot of the businesses. I am totally the black sheep having a clothing line.
Okay.
So the other companies in our portfolio, there's about 10 of them are all tied to, well, it was wire and cabling, but now bringing rural internet to Ohio.
Okay.
So now
and
it's...
you're like, well, I'm going to start golf clubs.
Right.
Okay.
And there's so much I can, I help with them too. But what's really cool is that behind all of our companies, we have a full IT department, a full financial department. So I tap into all of those resources. So I have a CIO, I have a CFO, but it's just part of our aggregate under the family office. But so internal, close to Ali Putnam is I've got Alexa Dvorak, and I met her on Instagram. It's the best story because she is my right-hand lady. I was just telling her, I was like, we've really made it to each other's, the top of our list when behind my mom and husband, you're the next person on my call list. She's on speed dial nonstop, but so incredibly smart. And she outworks me every day. And it's one of those things that I've never had that, I think, at a job where I'm just I've literally opened my email in the morning, oh shit, I got to get going. Alexa's already 2 hours ahead of me and she's an hour behind me in Central Time Zone. But she just is, she works so hard and it really motivates me to be all right, she's done all this. I'm catching up with her and going to outrun her. So that's incredible. And she knows the golf world like the back of her hand, and she's been involved with it quite a while. Her husband owns some training tools and things like that. Mm-hmm. So she's an asset because I don't know the golf world as well. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of my eyes and ears to be like, do you know who you're talking to right now?
So did you find her on Instagram and just DM her and say, hey?
This is so cute. So she has a handle called Pleasure of Sport, and she was posting just beautiful things all to do with tennis and golf and just imagery that was just so beautiful and style. And so it was right after the PGA show, she reposted something of mine, and I was like, wait, somebody reposted my stuff? Of course.
Where's my agent?
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was like that moment, you're like, whoa, who is this reposting it? So I did, eventually she reposted a couple other things, and I was like, thank you so much for the support. I was like, I don't know what you're doing with Pleasure of the Sport. And I always tell her, for a hot second, I was like, is this lady about to start a brand that looks just like mine? Because we have the same taste. Mm-hmm. So I messaged her. I was like, would you ever want to chat sometime? And I remember having a 2-hour drive, and we talked the entire time. Wow. And it was just like, she knows back end of Shopify. And so I was in the middle of spending way too much on a website. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, I was like, from a contract basis, can you come in and finish my website and help me launch? And she did. Yeah. So in that moment, I was like, I can't lose her. Mm-hmm. That was probably 3 months after I launched the business. And so it was just like, really the stars aligned on it. And then I've got another woman internally, and she is helping with so much like internal admin and order processing and stuff like that. And she happens to she nannied my kids for a few years. So if you can't trust somebody more than that.
It's perfect. So, okay, let's actually look back.
Yeah.
For the marketing, the website, you touched on a website they were spending way too much money on. I can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And branding, emails, logo, everything. What's one thing that you wish you did differently if you kind of could rewind as far as the branding, marketing?
It's funny. And I thank my dad every day for it. And it's something that I remind myself in every move I make and every decision I make that I throw a lot of money at things to move quick. Mm-hmm. And I'll always look back and say, I wish I didn't spend that much money making a website. I wish I didn't.
So much money to move quick.
Yes.
Wow.
And
that just hit my core.
Oh, right. I know. I spent a ton of money on the first photo shoot. Decided I had to go to Mexico and had to do all these things. And even that next photo shoot, just a lot of money. Those things get so expensive. And I was like, well, that's the only way to get good imagery and good content. And I look back on, and I remember saying that to my dad of it just stinks. Looking back on it, I now looking at how efficient we are. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, I could have done so much with that money. Yeah. And it burns. But at the same time, he'll always say you have to take that as a learning moment. Yeah. And Alexa and I talk about it a lot. We run all our photo shoots on our own now. Yeah. And we've got a really good team that helps us do it in a very efficient way. And I know you've seen our stuff. It really is incredible. Yeah. No, and so they're just one of those things that he's always you can't look back and say I wish I would have not done this. So he's think of that as that was your consulting fee. Now you know how to run a photo shoot. Mm-hmm. I'm okay, that does make me feel a little better. Yeah. So, I think that it really was the money spent on some of these things, but I do really feel it's helped us become so much more efficient and lean and spend the money in the places that we now understand matter. And some of it, the world of influencers and things like that, we have a very, very different approach to it. Okay. And we almost, not that we try to avoid it, but we're trying to find women genuinely relate to the brand. And those aren't your influencers with 100,000 followers. Yeah. Our influencers are the women that work at KPMG and are sending, have a, group of women that they golf with or, and it doesn't matter.
Really, truly wearing
100%.
To work.
Yeah. You're just that it just clicks with them and they're appreciative of the clothes and
they're mix matching it with their other pieces that they've had forever.
Right. Right. So it's there's such an evolution where you're just oh, I don't know if I should have done all that. And then, but it's really helped us, I think, come into our own and really, from a branding perspective, perfect it. And I don't know if a lot of brands feel that way or not, but it's taken us, I think, 2 years to be this is who we are. Mm-hmm. And it's just, even coming out of this past PGA show, I think it was just so solidified. And now it's okay, now we're off to the races. Yeah. This is what we're doing.
Absolutely. So Was there a moment where things got a little gray, a little dark?
Yeah.
You had to kind of make a decision like, okay, are we going to move forward? Are we going to make this big decision to do this? Or
oh my gosh, honestly, I feel like it's every day sometimes, you know? And I worked for a startup company. I had some wonderful friends that started a popsicle business. And I just remember that like every day is hard, like to some degree. And I'm a very optimistic person. It takes a lot for me to get in a bad mood. Like I really feel fortunate that it's easy for me to just brush something off and be like, move on. Like that was the wrong turn. We got to turn this way. And I think it's really helped us just like keep driving forward. And I don't know, like if there's a moment that I really would say that like burned a lot or like we felt like we were in this rut. I mean, there's always these little, I don't know if it's mistakes, but like these times where you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, even from a fulfillment standpoint, like little things you're just like, oh my gosh, we just spent so much money having to like fix barcodes or fix all these things. And sometimes, and I think it happens where you just go through those little lulls of like, why does it feel like everything not is going wrong, but you're just like, why does it feel like such a challenge this week?
Why is it so hard? Where'd the fun go?
Right, to some degree. And it's kind of like, well, you just got to keep plugging away. And, you know, we're making big decisions. Like we're in the process of implementing a new like ERP system, which is like the software behind us that will help us just be more efficient and thorough from invoicing, from all those like back office things. And that's the kind of thing like that takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's nothing that the customer right away is going to see. Like it's just a little bit of like prepping ourselves for growth. And sometimes those when you're in the rut of like, oh my gosh, it's like 3 months of testing this and doing like, did we make the right move on this? Should we have done it? Is it too early to do this? So those are those moments that I think are just like, oh, we got to keep going. So that happens monthly.
So as far as cost is concerned, because I think actually very well-made golf clothes, like they are starting to be more expensive, and it's just becoming a new norm. And I'm fine with it. There's really special pieces. Like that blazer I just bought, that's a special piece that was going to last forever.
Totally.
Like when are you ever going to like be like, this looks like shit?
Yes, right.
You know,
As classic
pieces.
as it is.
Exactly.
Yep.
So what do you, when you see some friction with customers, I'm like, why is this so expensive?
Right.
Or, God, this is so much money. How do you handle that externally and internally?
Yeah, and I think being the designer of all these clothes, like you have to really be like, don't take it personal. Like it is literally just, but I also think from a women's perspective, I know that not every piece is going to fit everybody well. Like I do my best to make sure that all of our product is like true to size. And I made a pant very early on that I had to tell women to size up in. And I was like, I'll never do it again. I was like, never. So now it's kind of funny because our stuff, I think, airs on the side of like, oh, I could size down in that, which is, well, what's better feeling than that? Not super intentional, but I also like, I try on the clothes. I try on all my samples. I make sure, and I'm not built like every woman, but from a price point perspective, like outside of the style side, I always say that, I mean, the versatility for me is like most important point to drive home of like, I hope this cardigan like takes you on the course. I hope you can wear jeans traveling today. I hope you can wear it out to dinner tomorrow. And that's where I'm just like, that's the point of these clothes. And I've always loved kind of the capsule style, minimalistic approach to dressing anyways, where it's just like, you can have 5 really good pieces in your closet and wear them so many different ways. And so that's always kind of not what I combat with, but that's always what I try to share with people is like, I hope you wear this more than just the golf course, because me being a casual golfer, I'd buy clothes and literally sit in my closet for the 4 times I golfed a year. And I didn't love them, but I also was like, I've always loved like buying clothes. So buying cute golf clothes, I was not like, even when before I launched the brand, there were a couple brands that I was like, oh, I'm totally buying this, buying that. But literally I never wore them except for golf. So that's the whole approach to our pricing. And I'm always like open to trying to figure out how we lower our costs. And some of that's growth, you know, it's, we do buy at minimums. And so your prices are always higher from a cost standpoint. So there's efficiencies that we're trying to get to be like, all right, let's make sure our polo isn't $200, you know, like have some pieces that maybe are easier to mix and match with those items. So it's a process too.
I know. And so let's finish with
Yeah.
the social media.
Yes.
Because again, I was scrolling all morning, looking at all your things.
Uh-huh.
And I just really appreciate, at this part of my life,
Yeah.
like I like people showing me how to wear
Right.
certain pieces.
Right.
It means something to me because I just, sometimes I can't see it.
Yes. Yes.
And again, the beauty in A. Putnam is
Yeah.
that, okay, here's it styled on the golf course. Here's
Right.
it styled having lunch at the country
Yeah.
club. Here's it styled at a little
Yeah.
cocktail party.
Yeah.
So I really feel like you're
Thank you.
very conscious of that when you
Yes.
put something on your social media.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's kind of funny too, because I mean, even from the beginning, you know, I think starting a brand, you have to decide, are you going to be forward facing or not as an owner? And it almost was like, how can I not be? Because it's such a different concept. And it's, I think in the very beginning stages, I mean, partially because who else am I going to pay to like do
Which
this?
is also a lot of money.
It is. You know, yeah, it all adds up so quick. And, you know, content is huge. You know that so well. Like any opportunity to get content is really important. So in the very early stages, it was just easier for me to explain and put the clothes on. But it was just so natural, and it always has been. Now, natural in the sense like it took some time to get used to be like camera on camera.
And I'm sure a little time period where your friends are like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you silly?"
100%. I mean, and I turned 40 this month. Like, it's not like I'm some young little TikToker.
I just turned, well, I'm 41. But I say that too, like when I was making videos, even 5 years ago, 6 years
100%.
ago, like I mean, we are changing.
It's a funny world, and I still feel like I get embarrassed when I'm like in the kitchen filming something, and my husband's like, you know, trying to get in the fridge first. So I'm like, just let me do this really quick, and then
I make my lunch, hon.
Yeah.
Can you please go back into
I
the
really
office?
care about this. It's so fun. It is just such a weird world, but I've also just found that like that is what resonates, and I do have to tell that story because it's not as easy as somebody being like, oh, polo, I know I'm going to match that polo with that pleated skirt. Like it's just our stuff's not. And so, and it is fun to be like, this is why I made that skirt. I want to be able to wear it with boots in the winter and a sweater, but still wear it on the golf course with some cute shoes. So it is a big part of our social. And I think outside of that, the other part is kind of our women in golf thing. And that's really,
I know. Tell us about that.
yeah,
Where we
super
can watch,
quick. Yes. So right now we're just on YouTube, but I started this very early on. And it's one of those things that I wasn't always good about staying up with it. And as you know, you just have to keep scheduling people out. So Alexa's super good at being like, I've got 5 more people, schedule it out. You just need to do it. But at the heart of it, and this is me just being a businesswoman and really appreciating like people's careers and what women are doing. And I think very early on, I wasn't comfortable or knew the golf space very well. But what I felt comfortable with was talking to people about like their jobs in golf. Like, what are you doing in golf? And I think it was just so quick that I was like, this is so cool. Because one, there's so many people doing so many different things. I think it's really good for other women outside and in golf to be like, there's so many different roles that women can play in the sport. And we've talked to like golf course architects, artists, I mean, chiropractors, like all across the board.
It's not just becoming a swing instructor.
No.
There's so much more to do in the golf industry than that.
And I think what's neat is that it just gives us a moment to like not talk about clothes. So, I mean, I love clothes.
Instead, talk about the business side of it,
is.
which you love.
Yes.
You live and breathe it.
Exactly. And it's also just been a really good platform to let women talk. Like the amount of women I've talked to that like might be in your role. Like, I don't know how often you get to sit down and be like, oh, here's where I started with golf. It doesn't happen a lot, especially those that are in that career that just like, oh no, I've never had a reason to tell anybody where I came from and why I'm here. So that's probably been one of my favorite parts of the business, but it's also helped me just meet some incredible women that have just now become friends. Like to come to Arizona and see people that I've had women on golf, like I'd never be able to do that 2 years ago. So,
well, we're going to share that in the show notes too. I told her, I said, you got to make it a podcast. Just throw it. You have the episodes, just throw it on a podcast.
Well, now I'm going to be texting you, be like, who do I talk to? Who can help me?
That's the beauty of
Yeah.
sometimes there's easy things about making content
Yeah.
where you make a big long form piece of content
Yeah.
like we're doing right now, and you
Right.
break it up into pieces. So there's
Yeah.
ways to kind of get around the
Yes.
stress of it all.
It is. And that's how we've used the women in golf is that, and also giving those ladies like, here's
You're
your
amazing.
conversation that you can share across all your platforms. Like, don't have to, but it is pretty cool. So.
Well, Allison,
Thanks.
thank you so much. For
I mean,
being here.
likewise. I feel like honored to be a part of this.
No, I'm
So
so,
cool.
inspired.
Thanks.
And I see a lot of myself and you, and just like
Oh,
how
that's a
you're
nice compliment.
driven and your excitement
Yeah,
behind it all.
yeah.
And just like
Oh, thank
having
you.
all the ideas.
Yep. I appreciate it. Thanks so
thank
much for
you
the
for sharing
support
your
and
story.
sharing this. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that you need to know to get in front of some Ali Putnam
Yeah.
gear is right in the show notes.
It is awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.